Hi everyone, it's Katrina. From mysterious black boxes weighing 100 tons to the biggest discovery made by Egyptian archaeologists in 100 years, here are 11 amazing discoveries from Egypt. Number 11. The black boxes near Giza. 12 miles south of the Great Pyramid of Giza, archaeologists discovered a cave system buried in a hillside with 24 giant black boxes. These coffin-shaped boxes were found in a burial site and are thought to be from 3,300 years ago during the time of Ramses II. These strange boxes are carved from solid Aswan granite and weigh more than 100 tons each. Known as the Serapeum of Saqqara, their weight alone is very remarkable, but it is also interesting to note that they were cut with remarkable precision. A serapeum is a temple dedicated to the deity Serapis, who combined aspects of Osiris and Apis in a humanized form. They have some hieroglyphs on them, but they are so crudely drawn that they are thought to be ancient graffiti rather than the original design. Ancient graffiti is still pretty cool. They were first discovered in 1850, but still no one has any definitive idea of what they are for. The most comprehensive theory that currently stands is that they were burial places for Apis bulls, which were revered as representations of the god Ptah. It's thought the boxes are giant sarcophagi designed to contain the mummified remains of the bulls and allow them to continue on into the afterlife. Number 10. Abandoned Sphinx. Earlier this year, archaeologists unearthed an 11.5-foot ram-headed sphinx from a quarry of debris near Aswan, Egypt. The sandstone sphinx was left in an ancient carving workshop at the Gebel El Silsila quarry site. The team also found hundreds of stone fragments with hieroglyphs and carvings of a cobra that once crowned the sphinx. While its presence there is pretty strange, archaeologist Maria Nilsson, the director of the excavation, is guessing that maybe the sculpture was a cancelled order. It was possibly commissioned by King Tut's grandfather, Pharaoh Amenhotep III, and simply abandoned when he died and when his son assumed the throne. Amenhotep III ruled Egypt from around 1390 to 1350 BC. The massive sphinx would have been carved from a block of sandstone weighing 10 metric tons. National Geographic documented the discovery, so be sure to check out the series The Lost Treasures of Egypt. Archaeologists have their work cut out for them as they excavate all the rubble in the quarry and translate remnants of texts also found at the site. Number 9. Ancient Tomb. Continuing with the same site I just told you about, where Amenhotep III's sandstone sphinx was recently discovered, archaeologists made another surprising discovery in 2016, when they found a watery tomb containing the remains of 50 to 60 ancient Egyptians. While a tomb in ancient Egypt might not sound that rare, this one dates back to 3,550 years ago, during the 18th dynasty of Egypt, and it was full of mummy goo. It consists of two chambers sitting 16.5 feet beneath the bedrock, which were filled with a briny water and fed by a local spring. As a result, the tomb's contents were a mess, requiring scientists to pump what they are calling the soup of human remains out and delicately sort through everything by hand. Yuck. There are at least 3 infant and child-sized sarcophagi in the watery tomb, along with the remains of more than 50 others, 2/3 of whom are adults. A failed looting attempt and the inflow of water into the tomb caused the remains to get all mixed up, making it even harder. On the bright side, it's the only tomb at the site that hasn't been looted, which is the archaeologist's equivalent to Christmas Day. Many of the male skeletons bear evidence of back pain and broken bones, suggesting that they were quarry workers. They were buried with amulets and shabtis, or small figurines meant to act as laborers for the dead during the afterlife, indicating that the tomb's occupants were not slaves. Over time, they are hoping to get to the second room as well. They still don't know why so many people were buried in one place. And now for number 8, but first, if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. And quick shout out to Malcolm Johnson for saying that this was dope. I'm cool, you guys. Be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell if you haven't already. Number 8. The Cairo Manuscript. The Cairo manuscript was originally discovered in the 1800s before being lost again for another chunk of years. It was rediscovered in an old storage box in Cairo's Egyptian Museum in 2015 by Belgian scholar Val Sherbini. It is the only leather manuscript that dates back to more than 4,000 years. It measures 8.2 feet long, making it the longest text ever found. As a reference, I'm 5'6". The manuscript contains colorful depictions of divine and supernatural beings, religious spells, and incantations predating the Book of the Dead manuscripts by 1,000 years. There is writing on both sides similar to those found on the base of Middle Kingdom sarcophagi from the necropolis of Hermopolis in Upper Egypt. This manuscript details a series of incantations that would have been recited by a priest, and images of rituals for funerary processions. Only the most important and sacred drawings and texts were written on leather, because leather was seen as a very prestigious material and is more delicate than papyrus. Unfortunately, it also disintegrates much more quickly, and Sherbini had to piece together all the tiny fragments of the leather roll. The Cairo manuscript is one of the most detailed and well-preserved texts from so long ago, and further uncovered the rituals associated with Egyptian religion. Sherbini is preparing the full publication of the contents of the ancient manuscript to share with the world. Number 7. Ancient Winery. In January of this year, archaeologists working at the Tel Qom al-Trogi site north of Cairo in the Nile Delta found ancient storage rooms belonging to a 2,000-year-old winery. The rooms appear to have been climate-controlled and are connected to a larger winery complex. The winery was built sometime between the 4th and 7th centuries during the Greco-Roman era, a time period during which some of Egypt's finest wine was produced in the region. It was likely owned by a royal or a high-profile nobleman, as wine was considered a luxury product reserved for affluent consumers. In fact, wine was considered divine, a product of the gods. These newly discovered rooms were made from thick mud and limestone slabs, the latter of which were likely used for cooling the chamber and regulating the temperature of the wine. Evidence of previous digs indicates that there are other buildings at the site, which would have accommodated the winery's workers, including young boys who were hired to scare birds away during the winemaking process. That's fun, right? Aside from its primary use for socializing, wine was prescribed as an antiseptic, a cure for cough, and to ease pain during childbirth, so you can imagine it was in high demand. Number 6. The cause of King Tut's death. Experts and Egyptology enthusiasts the world over have debated the cause of King Tut's death ever since his tomb was discovered in 1922. One popular theory throughout the years was that King Tut was murdered, as evidenced by a 1968 X-ray showing fragmented portions of his skull. His death at the age of 18 or 19 was the beginning of the end of the 18th dynasty of Egypt's ruling classes, but there's still debate about how his life came to such a sudden end. Recent evidence suggests otherwise, according to Dr. Zahi Hawass, a famous Egyptian archaeologist. Hawass revealed to the press that DNA testing and a CT scan prove that King Tut wasn't murdered at all. His ribs were damaged and seemingly removed during the mummification process along with the breastbone, and he had a fractured leg. An accident occurred 2 days prior to his death, but what exactly happened, we will never know. Some believe that he died while taking part in one of the Egyptian king's favorite pastimes, hunting. Could he have crashed while racing a chariot, or even been struck by a speeding chariot as he knelt on the ground? Others think it was the result of an encounter with a Nile hippopotamus, an animal that's now extinct, but was alive during the time of the ancient Egyptians. The creatures are more than powerful enough to inflict deadly injuries on a person in line with the damage seen on Tut's body. Other theories include the idea that he could have been kicked by a horse. Scientists believe that based on the CT scan, it is most likely that his thigh fracture became infected and was ultimately fatal. Number 5. 30 ancient coffins. In the first Egyptian-led mission in over a century, and the largest discovery of its kind in over 100 years, archaeologists in Luxor recently uncovered 30 ancient wooden coffins containing mummies. Most excavations are led by foreigners. The coffins, which were excavated from the El Asasif necropolis, or City of the Dead, along the Nile's west bank, are remarkably well preserved. They belong to 23 men, 5 women, and 2 children, all of whom were likely middle class. Many of the mummies appear to be priests, earning the collection the nickname the cachette of the priests. The landmark discovery has garnered worldwide attention, especially due to the 2 exceptionally rare child coffins, according to famed archaeologist Zahi Hawass. These coffins are 3,000 years old and are well preserved, and have even kept their coloring. Some of the coffins contain the names of the dead. Those carved with open hands belong to females, while closed fists represent males. The coffins were covered in hieroglyphs, which remain visible and are currently awaiting interpretation. Despite being buried for thousands of years, the coffins look great, with their vibrant coloring, which were placed using natural stones such as sandstone and turquoise mixed with egg whites. A mixture of egg yolk and candle wax gave them a natural sheen that has remained visible throughout the centuries. The coffins were buried in 2 rows 3 feet beneath the ground and were likely hidden to avoid tomb robbers. Clearly, it worked. Number 4. Ankh-T. For 3 decades, archaeologist Dr. Vasco Dobrev has searched for the missing tomb of the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Userkare. Although he hasn't yet found what he's looking for, Dobrev has made some arguably equally fascinating discoveries at the suspected burial site beneath an unfinished pyramid in Saqqara, which suggests he's pretty darn close to hitting the mark. Earlier this year, he uncovered the 4,200-year-old tomb of an Egyptian priest named Ankh-T. It's the oldest tomb Dobrev has discovered throughout his career, and perhaps one of the oldest ancient Egyptian discoveries in general. Dobrev expected to travel between 4 and 6 meters down to find a burial chamber, but he ended up descending 15 meters before he stumbled upon Ankh-T's tomb. It was initially filled with sand, which was cleared away to reveal stunning artwork and hieroglyphics, a stark contrast to the small, humble grave Dobrev imagined. Ankh-T's body was not well preserved, but this was expected as he was buried around 2,000 years before Cleopatra's time, and mummification was not very advanced. Experts will further examine what's left of his remains. Everybody wish Dr. Vasco Dobrev luck in finding Userkare. Number 3. Ancient Industrial Complex. In an unprecedented discovery, archaeologists at Luxor's Valley of the Monkeys recently uncovered 30 workshops that once comprised an ancient Egyptian industrial complex. The facilities were used for producing decorative objects for royal tombs, such as pottery and furniture, and included a giant kiln. Each workshop had a specific use, from making furniture to crafting gold objects to creating pottery, according to Zahi Hawass, who led the excavation. See, I told you he's really famous. His name keeps coming up. Up until now, everything we know about the Luxor region came from the tombs themselves, Hawass explained. It's the first time industrial-scale production facilities for making funerary ornaments were uncovered in Egypt. The findings consist of rooms that stored food, as well as a water tank workers drank from, offering a first-hand, never-before-seen glimpse into the lives of ancient Egyptian day laborers. Excavating the site has been a difficult and painstaking process, requiring the removal of around 3,000 stones just to gain access. The artifacts within date back to sometime between 1539 and 1292 BC during Egypt's 18th dynasty. Number 2. Roman-era cemetery. In early November, a joint Egyptian-Japanese team of archaeologists announced the discovery of a Roman-era cemetery in a previously unexplored region of North Saqqara. It's the first Roman cemetery ever discovered in the area and dates back to the 1st and 2nd centuries. The graves were contained within a dome-like mud brick structure with an internal staircase and a room carved from limestone, according to Nozomu Kawai, the excavation's leader. There were numerous clay pots near the entrance gate, as well as 5 terracotta statues of Isis Aphrodite and 2 lion-shaped limestone statues. The Roman Empire declared Egypt a province in 30 AD. When the Roman Empire split during the 4th century, Egypt became part of the Byzantine or Eastern Roman Empire. Then in the 7th century, Egypt fell under Arab rule, ending one lengthy and dynamic chapter of its history and embarking upon another. Number 1. The lost city of Thonis-Heracleion. In the early 2000s, a team of divers working off the coast of Egypt in the Mediterranean found an unusual lump of rock under the seabed. They brought it back to the surface and realized that it was part of a statue. Further investigation found more pieces, along with shards of pottery, jewelry, coins, lamps, and temple ruins. It soon became clear that they had discovered a lost, sunken city. That would have been fun to be part of that dive. Thonis-Heracleion isn't a name too many people are familiar with, unlike Atlantis, for example. But to people who lived in or traded with Egypt in the 5th century BC, it would have been the center of the universe. It was the main port on the Mediterranean and the gateway by which all people and goods would pass between the country and the Western world via the Mediterranean. It was founded about 2,700 years ago and soon became an important trading hub, a complicated network of canals, harbors, temples, and wharfs that were built on the aquatic marshland. Despite having been mentioned in various manuscripts from the time, the city was lost at some point in the 2nd century BC. It's thought to have happened during a flood when the weight of the buildings caused the soft foundations to quickly liquefy, and everything collapsed into the water. Rather than attempting to rebuild, all trade rerouted through nearby Alexandria, and the once famed port was lost to history. Thanks for watching! Time for a trip to Egypt, don't you think? So many discoveries! What other ancient civilizations would you like to learn about? Let me know in the comments below and be sure to subscribe before you leave. See you next time. Bye!